Hey, welcome to Striving Artist. I'm your host, Arlene, and I'm here in Mississauga at Combat Arts. Thanks to our friends here at this awesome gym. I am joined with stunt performer, Sebastian Buitrago.
Very nice, yes, good, you got it. Awesome,
Thanks.
Good, yes.
Thanks so much for your time.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
This is awesome. So this is very unique because Sebastian is our first stunt performer. So I'm sure we've got a lot of different things that our striving artists out there can learn from.
Yeah.
I just want to know, when you were young and you saw like film and TV and fight scenes and stuff, like what went through your mind? Was it more of like, hey, that looks really cool, or like, hey, I want to do that when I grow up?
My introduction into the film is just cartoons, right? Like I grew up with the Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
And so, you always want to be a ninja.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
So that was my thing. It was like, I want to be a ninja. And I never really thought about working in the movie industry until later in my life, when I went to Vancouver and I did some stuff in Vancouver, and one of my instructors got into the film industry, and he goes, hey, you should come out here and do that. And so that's kind of where that dream started, from a stunt performing side. I did a lot of like acting and modeling growing up, because my parents were just like, well, we're new immigrants, so you're gonna do that, right? Because we got to make money off of you, type of thing. Right. So so I did that, and that kind of was my first introduction to the film industry.
Oh, cool.
But I never, growing up, I didn't put the two together yet.
Right.
It was just kind of like, yay, train, become ninja, woohoo, and then okay, I gotta go and get pictures taken.
Right.
And then as I grew older,
that's awesome.
as I grew older and traveled for martial arts and stuff, then things started to come together, and I started to realize that a lot of the stunt performers out there are ninjas. Like they're unbelievable, some of these guys, and they're all either ex-Olympians or ex-pro fighters or ex-dancers.
Right.
Like, so these amazing people, and so that started to bring me towards that. And so at that point, I was probably in my early teens. I started to watch movies and be like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I want to do stuff like that. So that's when I started to I was probably in high school when that kind of started happening.
Right.
But yeah, growing up, I think my influence was I just grew up in the time when, we had the Ninja Turtles and the Power Rangers and all that jazz, right?
That's true.
And so it was like in ninja time, and I want to be a ninja. And so I started to train towards that. And then just as I grew older, I started to realize, hey, maybe I can make a career out of this, right?
That's so cool.
But it wasn't necessarily my first go-to, just because I come from a fairly traditional home. So it was kind of like, you have to go to university, you got to do this, you got to do that.
Yeah.
Martial arts are just for fun. Like, that's not really like a thing.
Right. So. And actually, a lot of the artists that I get to interview have gone through that. I think a lot of the artists are like from immigrant families as well. They want to make sure that we get a good education, a great income, but then what really is like burning desire inside of us, that's where we find our passion. And it sounds like you've done that.
Yeah,
and
so I mean,
to become a ninja.
Oh, I'm not a ninja. I'm by far a ninja.
Right, but I think like a lot of people that grow up with that, because I grew up with the Ninja Turtles as well, but like we all want to be that secretly, but it's cool that you are now bringing it into fruition.
Yeah.
So can you talk to us about your transition from, like you briefly touched on it, but going from, something you did before stunt performing to doing stunt performing now?
Of course. So I went to university for like strength and conditioning and athletic therapy. So I actually worked in the industry as a therapist.
Oh, cool.
With the pro team in the city, and then with one of the national teams.
Okay.
But I maintained my training the whole time because it was my outlet.
Right.
And it was something I always loved and always wanted to do. And I actually had a really good friend of mine who works in the film industry, but I met through martial arts.
Oh, cool.
And through all this time, we were just friends, and he always kept saying, Sebastian, you train so much, and you should do this, that, and the other. And I was like, oh, I can't. I got to continue this, like very traditional, conservative way of going.
Right.
And then there was a point in my previous career where things I felt like there was something missing in my life. And I knew that it was training, for one, because it's something that I'm very passionate about. I'll train until the day I can't move anymore. And the other one is the creativity that I don't get to do that, especially in the healthcare field. I find it difficult.
Right.
So for me, it was like, oh, there's something missing. And with him, every time we had a conversation, he goes, so are you going to do stunts? Are you going to get into film?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, no, this is silly. I've got this job. And then, just something happened, and I just woke up one day and I was talking to him, and he goes, you really should think about it, because, this is one of those careers where you need to start like soon. And so I did. So I just woke up and I'm just like, forget everybody, I'm gonna do it.
Good.
And I just kind of jumped into it with both feet. I wasn't alone. I had friends that were already in the industry.
Right.
So when I was first introduced, I was in high school.
Okay.
And at the time, I was told to go, hey, let's move out west and go into film.
Right.
And at 16, 17, like it wasn't gonna fly in my home.
Yeah.
In my house, right? My parents would just disown me, and so those people were still around. They were still part of my circle of friends. Cool. And so when I made a decision to transfer over and to do it full time, they were actually very supportive.
That's good.
Yeah, they were supportive. Other people may not have been.
Right.
But they just didn't understand. And so that's kind of my train of thought was, they just don't understand the concept of what it means to me, and just because I have this job, I like it. It's not terrible, but it wasn't something that I was highly passionate about. Like when I went home, I didn't think about that job.
Right.
When I went home, I would just watch movies, go to training, you know what I mean? Like that was my thing. So I started to realize that maybe it just wasn't for me, right?
Okay.
To do that.
So that's a really good point. You were saying like other people didn't really believe in it.
Yes.
But to think about it, that they don't understand it from where I'm coming from, is a good way to overcome that adversity, right?
Yeah. So.
And so with all this, like it's a very physical job, physical career, I should say. A lot of things must be going on in your head.
Yes.
How do you deal with that? Because a lot of artists, a lot of people in general, humans in general, we think a lot and we might stop ourselves from doing something, as you said.
Yeah.
But now that you've, jumped into this career, you love it.
Yeah, I do.
I feel like you find your calling.
The first one is finding a group of people that are around you that will, I'm not going to say support your dreams and ambitions, but are very think alike. Right. So I'm blessed to be in a place like Combat Arts, where my peers and my instructors are very open about knowledge.
Right.
And so the one thing that's helped me a lot is one, coaching other people, because it lets me see what they're doing and their deficiencies that will help me. And two is read. We try to read as many books as we can in as little time as possible, get as much information in there. So a lot of great books on self-care and self-help stuff and sports, a lot of sports psychology.
Cool.
And the thing that I realized was that sports psychology transferred into other forms, it works really well. So reading is huge for me. And so there's a lot of great books out there that kind of give you just things to think about. And so I try to apply a lot of those concepts.
Cool.
So, like especially at work, if there's things that scare me, like one of the big ones for me is fear. Cause when we all deal with it every single day of our lives, right?
Yeah.
And so try to find different books that kind of hit on that, and then try different things, right? So I'll put myself in a scary situation as much as I can. That's fairly safe. A good example would be something like going to do a sport or gymnastics or something in a safe environment, and try to apply those and practice those concepts.
Okay.
Yeah. So in self-defense and martial and like policing and stuff.
Right.
And law enforcement, they do that in order to make sure that the military and those guys and the cops are ready for situations like that. So I try to emulate that. So I'll put myself in an uncomfortable situation.
Okay.
And then I try to apply, I'm going to, recite positive things in my head, or I'm going to get out of my comfort zone just enough to push through it, right? And so I think reading is a big one, having a group of people around you that understand you, and then educating yourself enough to educate others to what you are experiencing, right?
That's important, because not only are you learning, but you're teaching it so that you understand it again. Can you just talk to us about the positive things that you would say to yourself, like just like, are there go-to affirmations that you would say, or is the go-to things to get over the fear?
So I play from I wouldn't say that it's necessarily affirmations so much. It's just ability to stop negative thoughts.
Okay.
So in sports psychology, you do it a lot with athletes,
Right.
where we have a tendency of kind of putting ourselves down. And the goal is to create a trigger word. That's what I use.
Oh, cool.
So some people will use really funny words like, I don't know, Smurfs, like pineapple, like something weird, random, but to them it has a meaning.
Right.
I just use the word stop. And to me, when I say stop though, I imagine like a giant stop sign. So when something's happening, or when I catch myself being negative, or when I catch myself kind of starting to get a little nervous,
Right.
I just stop and I just literally say, okay, stop. And I imagine a giant stop sign, and it kind of resets my system.
Cool.
Yeah, and so I just do that, and I practice that. So I practice that with training. When in situations that I'm comfortable, I
Right.
practice it so that when I'm uncomfortable, it's already part of like my training. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
So that's a cool one. Yeah.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
And do you find that when you do that, like your body relaxes, like your breathing changes, or like it's just you just kind of?
Now I just find that I don't even remember what I was. It's
Oh,
weird.
okay.
It's like a purposeful amnesia. So like, you know, if I'm saying, oh, I'm so bad, stop. I was like, what was I talking about? Okay, let's keep going. Yeah.
That's awesome.
But it's just through repetition and practice, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of people need that. Like
It's
either you're
huge.
creative or not, but
It's huge.
because a lot of artists, we are stuck in our own head about creating something, and
Yeah.
and like for me, for my music, I'm like, I don't know if anyone's gonna like this.
Yeah.
So it can prevent me from sharing that.
course.
But then stopping all those thoughts can help us just, you know.
It's huge. It's worked so well for me. And even doing like fight choreo or stunts, same thing.
Cool.
It's just kind of like stop, and then, you know.
Nice. I just want to chat about what you've accomplished so far, like the projects that you've been involved with.
So to date, I've worked. I'm trying to think. Shows like Titans and The Boys.
Cool.
A lot of stuff that's on Netflix. We don't get a lot of big feature films that are shot out of Toronto. We get a lot of TV shows.
Right.
So yeah, so things like Titans, The Boys, Impulse. I just traveled to Montreal a few weeks ago to shoot a show called Blood and Treasure.
Wow.
Yeah, Blood and Treasure is a cool show. It's
Yeah.
kind of like modern version Indiana Jones.
Okay.
So I got to do a little bit of stunt acting there. So was a mercenary, had a big fight with a couple of the leads, and so that was fun.
Nice. So,
Yeah.
what's the difference between there's a huge difference between using weapons and just combat.
So from a training perspective, it's two completely different set of skills that you have
Right.
to train. So part of my day consists of, part of my week is I have to do hand-to-hand stuff. So whether it's traditional martial arts, you know, like your wushu's and your JKD and a lot of that kind of stuff that you see in all the fancy Born Identity type stuff.
Right.
Your Cali, right? Your Filipino martial arts and Scrimas. Or you get to more modern day stuff, so your Western boxing, right? And your French kickboxing and Dutch kickboxing and your Muay Thai. So
Wow.
that's just hand-to-hand stuff and punching and kicking, right? And then you got your grappling, so your jiu-jitsu, your judo, your Brazilian jiu-jitsu, aikido. So you try to incorporate wrestling.
Right.
And then there's the weapon stuff. So
Okay.
then the weapon you get, again, Kali and the Eskrima, and then some of the Japanese arts with the katanas and stuff.
Right.
And that's it from the training perspective. From the choreo perspective, it's all about distancing.
Okay.
Right. And it's kind of like dancing. It's a form of dancing.
Right.
Right. With your partner.
Yeah.
So a lot of that has to do with, depending on the storyline, because we're trying to tell the story with movement.
Cool.
Right, and that's kind of what sometimes we forget, right? We're
Yeah.
just oh, that's cool, smash, smash, smash. But we're trying to tell a story, so the weapons should tell a story as well, right?
For sure.
So it also depends on your character as well, right? Because if you're a ninja, you're gonna have a sword,
Right.
but if you're a police officer, you're not gonna carry a sword.
Yeah.
Right. If you're interviewing somebody you're not going to be carrying a giant baseball bat with
Right.
you, right? So it's all about telling that story through
Cool.
the weapons as well. And that's usually the fight coordinator who kind of builds that.
Right.
Yeah.
Can you just take us into a day of like what you would experience in a day?
Working or training?
Working.
Working.
Yeah.
So usually I'll find out when I find out. Could be the night before,
right.
as you noticed, or it could be a few weeks before. They'll ask you.
Okay.
When you get to set, you'll have your call time. I usually get it about a half an hour early so I can sort my stuff out. Because I bring a giant bag of pads with me, all my stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Get a little bit of food. I craft so I can,
nice.
you know, just in case I haven't eaten well enough.
Right.
And then I'll go through. It depends if I'm doubling. Usually, if I'm doubling, it takes a bit longer because I have to get a wig put on most of the time because I'm trying. Because I'm trying to mimic the other person, right?
Right, of course.
So if I'm doubling somebody, then usually I get a wig,
right?
Unless our hair is like perfect.
Similar, yeah.
So usually I'm in hair and makeup for could be anywhere from 15 minutes to 4 or 5 hours, depending on what's happening.
Right.
And then wardrobe, and then depending on the stunt. So if it's a fight choreo, chances are we've rehearsed it a couple of days before.
Cool.
And then we're probably gonna have to go and block it. And what that means is just making sure that the camera angles all work, because when we're talking, the camera's in one place and it's fairly easy. The movement's very small. When you're fighting, it's just kind of hectic. It's like, and what happens is a lot of times the camera won't sell punches because we're not actually trying to hit each other, right? Because then that would make our careers very short, right? So what happens is we'll try to sell certain punches and certain movements, and so we'll block it. Then we got a little time to rest, and then we go and we shoot, and we can shoot anywhere from my shortest time on set was half an hour, and my longest time on set was 17 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, so it kind of varies. It's up and down. Yeah, so.
Well, thank you so much for your time.
No worries.
I'm so excited for you. This is so cool. You guys have to make sure you check out his demo reel. It's like awesome. I want to say another word, but I don't know if I'm allowed to. But thank you so much, Sebastian.
My pleasure.
Make sure you guys stick around. I've got that special treat for you after the break.